When I think about you, I immediately go, the guy went to Harvard. He wrote for the Harvard Lampoon.
But why does that impress you?
Oh my God, because it is the number one most difficult college to get into in the world.
There's a plus and a minus to having people know you went to Harvard. And one of the minuses, especially if you get into comedy, is that the immediate assumption is a little bit like if an audience knows you went to Harvard, there might be a little, oh, this fucking guy thinks he's better than me, huh? Oh,
yep.
This guy thinks he's better than me. And, well, let's see how funny he is. And I remembered once in the early days of our late night show when everything was going wrong, we didn't know that you needed a warm-up, that you needed someone to warm up the audience. We said, who does the warm-up? It was like almost the first show. And they said, usually it's the announcer. But we had hired an announcer, lovely guy, Joel Goddard, with a great voice, but he was not a comedian at all. So we just turned him loose, and we were so busy putting the show together, we weren't paying attention to how he was warming up the crowd. And I would get out there, and the crowds were rough. The crowds were not good. Cold. And I'm thinking, okay, this is probably on me because everyone hates me right now, and I'm the guy that just replaced Letterman, and I'm in over my, everyone, whatever, I'm a joke. And so maybe that's it. But something was off. So one day I just happened to be putting on my tie, getting ready to do the show, and Joel's out there warming up the crowd, and I go and listen, and he's saying, now let me tell you something about Conan. Conan went to Harvard, where he majored in history and literature of America. He wrote a thesis on Flannery O'Connor and William Faulkner called Literary Progeria in the...
Oh, my God. Are you kidding?
No, and then he was like, here he is, a man who's better than all of you. Here he is, a man who's never done an honest day's work in his life.
When you graduate Harvard, everyone expects you to be the greatest at everything.
These schools are fantastic, and they're wonderful, and I was very proud that I was accepted. I had a wonderful time there. It got me into comedy. I met so many brilliant people. It was lovely. It's not Hogwarts. There's no such thing as Hogwarts. And I think there's this myth that you're going to go to this place and something's going to happen, a magical thing's going to happen. And it's not true of any of those schools. It's what you bring to it. It's what you do with it. And I have worked in comedy now since 1985 professionally. I would honestly tell you that the most brilliant people I've worked with, I don't know where they went to college. Some of them didn't go to college. One of the greatest comedy writers I've ever worked with went straight into the military out of high school.
Who was that?
Tommy Blacha. Tommy Blacha is an amazing comedy writer and one of the most original comedy minds I've ever met.
What is it you loved about him? Like, would you sit in a room with him and all of a sudden
talk about anything? You can talk about anything. I mean, he's a fascinating guy who. Here's something I loved about him. He left our show. Now, some people leave the show to go work on, I'll go work on an 11:30 show. I'll go work for Letterman, or it didn't happen much, but every now or they've got some amazing opportunity to run a sitcom out in L.A. He left our show to go work for the World Wrestling Federation. and one of my proudest moments. This is one of my proudest moments in comedy. Is I used to screw around with the writers a lot, and I would put on the attitude of this. I kind of like this over larger than life. I'd come into the room and I'd be like, quiet down, you idiots, and I would go on these long rants. And one of my put downs that I came up with, it was so stupid, but I liked it, was I told, if a writer was going on or said something I didn't like, I'd say, why don't you go have a nice tall glass of shut up juice, all right? And do yourself a favor. And it was such a stupid put down, but Tommy liked it. And then Tommy said, watch the match this weekend. And it was The Rock.
Well, The Rock says this: you should be concerned with fixing yourself a nice tall glass of shut-up juice.
And the crowd went crazy. Then the next week, Tommy said, check this out. So I turned in that match. People are holding up signs that say, drink some shut-up juice. And Tommy was like apologizing. I know I borrowed it from you. What are you talking about? Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson just said it. Vince McMahon gave you a high five. I was in heaven.